Hi tutors, I've designed a quick activity to introduce students to critical thinking, and following advice from last year, I've tried to make it more interactive, more like a kind of icebreaker to get students expressing themselves. Now you could either play the screencast that I've sent you and just pause it at the necessary times, or it'd be better if you delivered it yourself, and I'll just go through and give you a quick overview at the moment of how to do that. Okay, so first of all, in terms of what I wanted to do, was just introduce ideas of critical thinking and then look at a number of thought experiments, as you'll see. There are two different thought experiments that I thought I'd give the students. Firstly, trolley problems, and there are three of those. And then I was going to move on to the ticking time bomb scenario and the question of whether torture can be permissible or not. So it's kind of controversial. It should get students talking and most importantly, thinking. And then the idea is that I would link it to the curriculum, how important critical thinking is in students, especially at sixth form, and link it then to the supercurricular, the idea of the subject societies, the EPQ, and the other activities, the academic enrichment activities that are on offer in the school. So I'd begin with just a brief definition of critical thinking and how the problem is that most of us have prejudice or irrational thinking and that we're not aware of. And then move on to a quick description of thought experiments. These are imaginary hypothetical scenarios that are used in philosophy, and they actually test the logic of your thinking, in particular the logic of the premises that we use whenever we put forward arguments. Then moving on, just quickly explain what first principles are. First principles are when you cannot reduce the principle any further. And I'd ask students to think about these three first principles. Saving several human lives is better than saving one. Human lives of equal value, and it is unacceptable to torture people. Now, it'd be quite interesting to get students to write these down. I will provide you with a Word document where you can get students to actually record their thoughts. It will probably make them think a bit more clearly. With a lot of these activities, I would go for the kind of think, write, pair, and share idea. The activities shouldn't take you more than, say, 15 or 20 minutes, okay? And as I say, I think that they'll find them quite entertaining. Then moving on to the trolley problems. The trolley is actually an American word. We're probably more likely to call it a kind of tram or train. In the first trolley problem, you're going to ask the students the following. This is who they are, the guy with the lever over here. They are on the track. The trolley or the train is out of control. It's about to mow down these 5 people over here. The question for them is, would they redirect the trolley to kill 1 person rather than 5? And that's the first trolley problem. You can get them to think really carefully about that, put down a reason, and then we will move on to trolley problem number 2. In trolley problem number 2, we're going to keep the same scenario but change it just slightly. We're going to say that these 5 guys over here are actually life-term prisoners who've committed terrible crimes. You can be as imaginative as you like. And this guy over here is a brilliant scientist who is very likely to cure cancer. So in this particular trolley problem, they're testing the idea, is the value of human life universal or not? And you can use the medieval pyramid where the king is so much more important to illustrate this idea of a kind of hierarchy of life. Moving on now to one that's a little bit more controversial. Trolley problem number 3, which we will call the large man. In this particular moral scenario, you are not the agent pulling the lever. You are, in fact, this agent here. You see that as before, the trolley or the train is out of control. It's going to mow down the 5 people. This is a very large man in front of you, and you have the opportunity of casting him before the trolley. Yes, it will kill him, but it will preserve the life of the 5 workers on the train track. So again, it becomes very interesting to discuss whether that is the same thing as in trolley problem number 1, where you've diverted the trolley. If not, why is it different? How is it different, etc.? So again, hopefully that will generate some nice discussion. Now, we'll move on to a different scenario. In this slide, I would talk about the fact that in medieval times, they frequently burnt people alive. And as I say here, a number of Christians would say that this was a merciful and morally good thing to do because you were saving their souls. Today, it's an untenable position because the United Nations actually defines torture as illegal, and you will end up in a human rights court somewhere or even in a war crimes court, okay? So most of the students are going to commit to the idea that torture is wrong. And let's hope now that we can undo that first premise. This is ticking time bomb number 1. And in this, you explain that this terrorist over here has planted a nuclear device. It's going to kill millions of people. The only way that you can get the location and disarm this terrible bomb is through torture. Is it permissible to torture the terrorists becomes the question. Now, some students might say, I don't want to take a position. You know, these are too difficult. And again, this is just a nice little complicator again, where you say, well, if you took that position knowing that Hitler was going to kill millions of people in the Second World War, is it in fact immoral if you don't make a moral decision? And that just makes it hard just to say that I'm not going to take part in the thought experiment. Now, this is the worst one of all, and if you don't want to do it, I understand that perfectly, but this is where it gets really complicated. In ticking time bomb scenario 2, the terrorist has been taught to withstand torture. He has done all kinds of training. So the torture is likely to be ineffective. However, he does absolutely adore his wife. And as they are very close, it is highly likely that she will know the location of the bomb. So once again, the scenario this time is to ask the students, in order to save those millions of lives, can I torture the wife? Now, of course, there's no real answer to this, but it should generate some discussion, and it might actually get a few passions going, because this is obviously quite a nasty kind of scenario. Then, just to conclude as a kind of plenary, I would talk about the fact that critical thinking is what we've been doing today. It's about examining your prejudices, your suppositions. It's about very clear, logical, and rational thinking. It's about looking for contradictions. It's about seeing the wider picture. So the idea is that it helps with decision-making, problem-solving, research skills, creativity, and curiosity, okay? There is actually a foundation for critical thinking that the students could look at. But of course, 21st century ideas of education have critical thinking at their base. And then just finally, it'll be a good opportunity for us to advertise the super curriculum, especially the subject clubs, etc., to talk about the value of skills and transferable skills, how much they're valued by university, maybe to link it to the whole UCAS or university application process, and also to the fact that the EPQ would give them the opportunity to pursue things like critical thinking, creativity, resilience, research skills, communication skills, and above all, real-world learning. If you have any questions at all about that, about delivering it, then please see me. I hope that it goes really well, that it's interesting, that it gets the students thinking and talking. Thank you very much.